The title of this video essay is Bodily Readings, Body Surface, Skin Deep. I'm sure that by now you all find your skins a bit uncomfortable, and to start with this, to say that skins are always already uncomfortable, it is to feel one's own skin too tight or too wide, too scratchy or too delicate, thick, thin, too colored with all political investments of the politics of skin color, or less colored with all the political investments as mentioned, too stretched or on the verge of bursting. The skin is precisely what does not fit, as Halberstam states. If we are to start from propositions on the body and skin, I would like them to be out of the laughter, of a syncopated burst of laughter, spasmodically visceral, that engages the body, the surrounding air, the surrounding bodies, and everything sensitive. To start from the point of the body, or to make it more perilous, from the body openings and body cuts, is to engage into the philosophical adventure of bodying, into the philosophy that bodies, in Erin Manning's words. Consider the next sentence. Laughter is of the mouth, and female body does not have only one mouth. This thought belongs to Anca Pervalescu from her Laughter, Notes on Passion. This is a merry thought, if taken out of the context of the book, one that raises attention to the numerous laughing openings of body or female body. These openings, whether mouths, eyes, ears, nostrils, anus, vagina, navel, or more distant or superficial, hidden, dermal, wounded, and perforated, are to be thought as laughing holes, jiggling ruptures, and wounded interruptions. I am calling your attention to what Nancy said: there is never a single laugh in laughter. And, I might add, there is never a single rupture in any interruption. What we are dealing with is the body of openness, not only the opened body, the body with openings, but the materiality of openness, the corporeality, bodyness of interruption. We are dealing with the open that bodies. Regarding Erin Manning's insights into the philosophy of the body that bodies, and Nietzsche has already shown that concepts tend to decompose. I'm citing gods to decompose, end of quote. That has itself within itself something visceral, and Manning's proposition that the body is its movement. So we can state that body is a body of openness, or that the body is its opening. In this account, bodying implies that body is neither utopian nor dystopian. In this account, if body is its openings, it is ectopian, neither imaginary, fantastic, fictive, nor cataclysmic, prosthetic, or not only that, simultaneously nevertheless. Body is out of place, elsewhere, at the great distance, and this is not unfamiliar. Merleau-Ponty has questioned the dichotomy of interior and external, having stated that the body is outside, developing new flesh ontology regarding the phrase "the flesh of the world" as a form of connective tissue. Even though Merleau-Ponty insisted that the flesh of the world isn't material, but medium in which the self and the world are constituted in mutual relation, as Sheldrick states, the materiality of openness proposed here is taken as circulatory clogged tissue, promising that openings are opened only if clogged. It is evident that I am more in line with Luce Irigaray' notion of openness, which corresponds strongly with the material investments in this connective tissue of the world. Open quote, the internal and external horizon of my skin, interpenetrating with yours, wears away their edges, their limits, their solidity, creating another space outside my framework, an opening of openness. How can we think the materiality of openness? And how can we imagine this openness to open, to have an opening? Let's have some introductory remarks. The question of the body has deployed the massive scientific reference system and philosophical accounts on mind, soul, nous, spirit, body proper, flesh, and the dichotomies of active and passive, actu and axis, physis and logos, and many others. We cannot think the body from some starting point. We can, but we wouldn't get very far. We are inclined to read the footnotes to the grand studies and narratives of mind and reason. To think the body is to unthink the thinking itself, to rephrase, rename, reclaim the thinking from the border point of the corporeality of thinking. Having stated that, I might add, we are to think the body or bodies from the skin perspective, from the border of the border, and not from starting but from a supposed ending point, as a postscriptum to the vast scripture of the mind. To think the body from the skin perspective is to rewrite, it is to unwrite, it is not to commence but to suspend, to defer finishing, to safeguard the openness of the question on the body, to inhabit the interruption. We would be grafting on the aggregates of knowledge in Hegel's terms and making it with palyonymy in Derrida's terms, and tracing the catalogue of the body, a vast corpus, a vast discourse of the body and its failures in Nancy's accounts. Therefore, I am not to offer you some corpus of knowledge or defensive production of new epistemology of corpus, of new aggregate or a different registry. The body is to be the starting point to bring to an ending that never actually ends of the grand episteme that has gave birth and is nursing to the day to the notion of the border, to delineating body by its skin from the supposed outside. The skin was often regarded as an outside surface, so this is going to be the work of unworking, of undoing the body. Being the border itself, border encompassing the border of thinking, that is the body, the skin is temporalizing the marks, the folds, and this otherness of skin cannot be the object of analysis without questioning the analysis itself, without setting borders and limits to thinking as such. The text of body is always already written, and the text as the text of knowledge, and I can only, and that is not undemanding, think the skin as text, or text as skin to be read, and through that reading endeavor to depart from the body as conquered object of thought. However, outside of that text of knowledge, on its side, skin is the postscriptum and addendum. The skin is always beyond and after, gaining meaning as an inside and before. Skin can be thought as a temporal limit with the adjectives after and before, and at the same time skin can be thought as a certain space with the adjectives beyond and inside, in an Uncian sense as the space of confinement, of limit. These two perspectives do not exclude one another, and we can presume that skin can be thought as an uncanny chronotope of excess, and to read the skin would be to be in the process of becoming time-space naut, to navigate through skin pores, folds, scars, stitches, lesions, layers and extensions, and at the same time through narratives, memory sites, autobiographies or autothanatographies. As Nancy puts it, our thought of the limit is thought of excess, and the skin in that sense is the marking ground of being with, demonstrating its essence of being related to the other essence. Its essence, therefore, can be taken as being in relation. The fragility of the body is often shown through ruptures, openings. Body is punctured, wounded, and mended in political, economic, cultural, poetic, sexual, and haptic practices of stitching, closely tied to chirosophy, wisdom of the hand, that Anne-Marie Tully named practice of the ruptured mark. But aside of these passive statements that make body a space of violent procedures, we can imagine the body as actively self-mutilating, self-stitching, self-deframing, self-biologizing, or self-thanatologizing. The body is capable of producing bodies, detached and attached to another body and to one's own body, if there is such a body, making populations, packs, and collectivities. The body thus becomes the body of jointness, of always being with the other in excesses. The body of jointness can be understood as the body that is left when you take everything away, when you dismantle the body, and this restance, reminder, when the phantasmatics of body is taken away, in the Liz terms, is body without organs. So what does the term jointness stand for? Perhaps that is the only corporeal community there can be. Jointness of reminders of skins, tossed materialities, violated openings, detached body parts, discarded fantasies of the whole, the same, the one. Thinking the skin through the skin, by and with the skin, is to trace counter stitches in, on the skin, different voices, different tonalities, and different rhythms, to decompose, detotalize, and deframe the thinking itself. Like the body parts, extensions, permutations, recombinations, excesses, recesses, and deficits, the thinking is to be realigned in dermal intensities of the body text. Within the humanities, skin was often put aside, the body was privileged, understood from mind perspective. Skin was reduced to the desired object of visual culture. As an instrument, an organ kept hidden or overseen in critical theory, in postmodern accounts, the skin, being the first visibility of the body, becomes a significant phenomenon linked to the notion of the limit, and skins have gone through numerous transformations in cultural history, from the containers of flesh and bones to the skin as plural, hybrid, and mixed sites of contacts and touching. Thinking the body from skin perspective, thinking through the skin, means to dismantle the definition's conceptual columbarium of philosophy and to peel the surface disguised as depths, only to show that the most complex depth we can count on is the surface. As a border, skin is an uncanny text to be read, reread, touched, inscribed, rewritten. It is the canvas with the inscriptions of the logic of desire. In all its forms, skin is layered within and without, and this study particularly focuses on this aspect of the skin, especially regarding Paul Valéry's verse, "Nothing is deeper than the skin." Valéry's thought of skin as a generator of illusions and depths, bottoms and profundities is crucial. Open quote, "Marrow, brain, all those things we require in order to feel, to suffer, to think, are inventions of the skin. We burrow down in vain, doctor. We are ectoderm." Body as a border with the grafted largest organ of the limit, the skin. This body is an obsessive, recurrent, and most seductive fiction in Western thinking. But this ectodermal approach, with its ectopic topography, with Nancy's denouncement of body and announcement of corpus, is the most radical cut within the same paradigm of thinking. And we can tie this approach and its radical cut to the idea of a subtle instrument, one tiny, fragile, which requires to be wielded delicately, as Barth states. I presume that the notion of ectopic topography is the one quite unfamiliar in our archives of knowledge, and I'm going to draw heavily from Nancy's work on his labor of touch and Derrida's work on generative grafting and bottomless depths. Nancy states that there is no whole, no totality of the body, but its absolute separation and sharing out. There is no such thing as the body. There is no body. Instead, there are patient and fervent recitations of numerous corpuses. Nancy states this in Birth to Presence. In another text, named Corpus, Nancy states that the body is elsewhere, from another place, another regime, another register, which is not even that of an obscure knowledge or a preconceptual knowledge or a global, immanent or immediate knowledge. And this elsewhere is not only the condition of forever displacing body's place, it is the elsewhere that's all over the body, in the corpus of the parts of the body, in the body of all the parts, and in all other bodies, with which each can be part for another in an indefinitely ectopic corpus. In vicinity to Nancy's notion of ectopic corpus and touching too much, Derrida has largely responded in the book named On Touching. But I will put that aside for now and turn your attention to the notion of framing, grafting, and point two. In dissemination, the reader is calling for the alert reader to be on the edge, alert to the border itself, and he states you will have to find out that its indefinite depths were also bottomless, perfectly superficial, and continuous. You aren't settled outside, since the absolute outside is not outside and cannot be inhabited as such, but you are forever being expelled. And we can surely also call for the body as perfectly superficial, uninhabitable, and forever being expelled from Eden, from naturalized and normalized body of community, from putative, singular, healthy, immune human body, from human body as such, from eternal body, with all the cultural, economic, juridical, and political investments of generative, bloodline, and traditional kinship, and the like. There is an archive always expanding, erasing, and inscribing of various forms of expelled bodies and the corresponding symbolic and hegemonic regions of exclusion. The skin is no longer the keeper, the fragile protector of the body. Skin has suffered abrupt separation, detaching itself from the world, from other skins, while remaining attached and exposed. And it's a site of gentle hemorrhage, as Barth states, in the discourse of the body. Regarding the topographical obsession of Western thinking, the topos of skin is uninhabitable, uninscribable, contrary to the perspectives of skin as political and identificatory canvas. The skin is inscribing everything, starting with itself, as Nancy states. And I am aware of the restrictive sense in which these statements are set, and that we can easily name numerous counter-events of inscribing the skin, and the most important of them all, the political inscriptions, epidermal and ethnic othering, rooted in Western political practices and in subject formation itself. Let me give you a few examples. The first is the racial epidermalization, the production of the non-European, unenlightened subject placed on the vast border space of colonial Europe, was often done through what Frantz Fanon named the interrelatedness of skin chromatism and racial epidermal scheme in his book Black Skin, White Masks from 1952. Giving account of an encounter in a train, Fanon states that the little girl's utterance through her mother, "Look, a Negro," is a mark of crumbling of a corporal scheme and the appearance of racial epidermal scheme. This scheme has put in motion hordes of stories, legends, histories, and above all, historicity, thus developing political tropes of corporeal and lexical paradigms of racial identification. Colonial age does not end in some historical overturn regarding the fight for independence. Its continuation is guaranteed within the practices and forms of institutional storaging, archiving, and producing the stuffed taxidermic other for the cultural consumption and the conservation of knowledge. Second example for the shifting skin perspective regarding racial taxonomization and neo-colonial politics and technologies of observing and inscription is the movement beyond racial epidermal scheme, the so-called dermal scheme, to dermopolitics of taxidermy analyzed by Pauline Wakeham in her book Taxidermic Science Reconstructing Aboriginality. Wakeham has studied different semiotic, somatic, and affective codes enabled in the production of racial bodies, particularly the body reminders of Aboriginal peoples of Canada for political, educational, and cultural purposes. And let me cite Pauline Wakeham's sharp introductory remark on skin as both the biological tissue and discursive scheme. While skin is conventionally thought of in one-dimensional terms or as a flat surface, taxidermic semiosis complicates this notion via the production of skin stretched and contoured in the guise of bodily wholeness, molded in the shape of corporeal dimension and fullness. The semiotics of taxidermy therefore hinge upon the construction of epidermalized embodiment. Converting the noun epidermis into the verb form foregrounds the idea that the construction and identification of corporal forms is mediated by the crucial work of skin, as both biological tissue and discursive schema over-determined by colonialism's obsession with racial and species categorizations. Observing the skin in three-dimensional relation to real and imaginary anatomy beneath the skin, to the body skeleton structure, Pauline Wakeham has found a significant interrelatedness of taxidermy and craniometry and physiognomy that precede the epidermal scheme in discourse productions on race, as well as genome project in terms of contemporary reinscriptions of categories of race. A body created by taxidermy as a certain kind of technoscience dense macabre is revealing the vampiric culture in contemporary genetics. A body as a skeletal and muscular structure with the skin stretched to follow the contours of the given body is the practice of displacing the body from imaginary order to the order of visibility. The body is restored and reinvented as a showroom artifact, as a simulacrum of imaginary body staged in historical, archival, and scientific theater. From this point on, we can witness the succession of skin perspectives toward, for example, nanopolitics of the cell and the cellular, in close vicinity to reading the body as a blueprint of DNA, from the order of visibility towards the insideness of the body and its racial taxonomization of our time. Protective skin of the communal body is always already tattooed, stretched, and cut through, physiologically, genetically, politically, teleologically. These political grafts are cut in on the border points, customs, on walls, and all political epidermises on which all pores and leaks are severely controlled and monitored. Political inscription, violent thinking, symbolic or somatic, is the most gruesome mode of inhabiting the skin and entirely placed in dominant discourses, bureaucratic power distribution, and the production of abject bodies. Ectopic body is uninscribable, it is exscribable, disseminating the codes into the joints, vessels, guts, nails, and execrably laughing through the laughing gaps of the body. The skin is out of place. It is a vast space, never ending and both shrinking at the same time. Skin is distant insideness. To exist is to stand outside, and in this etymological play, we can perhaps say that to exist is to be the skin. To go on existing is to continuously, knowingly err and strategically fail to become the skin, to be nearby and distant, to be exposed and veiled, to be the inside-outside. And we are ectoderm, too distant, too away from place or any place. And that is the gift from skin, to be away from any place or place. If there is a space to inhabit, it would be to inhabit the uninhabitable ectodermal ectopia. The body is exposed and exposing through the skin. The skin is the sole materiality of openness, the largest hole of the body and the wide opening of the supposed outside with multiple ruptures and closures as a double failure to be completely closed and failure to be completely opened. As Nancy states, this is his question, what is a body if not a certain detachment of skin, of bark, of surface, if not a carrying of and setting aside of a limit that is exposed and exposes itself. End of quote. So the materiality of openness is in interruptions, in detachments, in caesuras, in a syncopated skin. Syncopated skin is the core of hypertext narrative of Shelley Jackson, the Patchwork Girl, closely related to writing mediums and to thinking with the skin beside in close proximity to the skin and laughter. We all know the tale of Frankenstein, the Gothic narrative woven by Mary Shelley at the beginning of the 19th century. These cadaverous body parts galvanized into living monstrous creature was the starting point for the text that I'm interested in, the Shelley Jackson's Patchwork Girl, the Patchwork Girl of Shelley Jackson. Patchwork Girl, or A Modern Monster by Mary Shelley and herself, is created in the program Story Space and published on CD-ROM. Jackson's idea was to recreate and rewrite Mary Shelley's novel Frankenstein, but the protagonist of this hypertext is not the Frankenstein creature. It is the Patchwork Girl, the much desired, abandoned and dismembered female mate to Frankenstein's monster. The fragmented literary hypertext of Shelley Jackson is not linear, and it consists of several main lexias or modes of text with the following titles: a graveyard, in which the Patchwork Girl is introducing the previous owners of her body parts; a journal, Mary Shelley's journal; a kilt, citational framework reference patchwork of excerpts from Frank Baum's The Patchwork Girl of Oz to Ellen Sixus Coming to Writing. Then we have a story. It's a complex autobiography, the discontinuous narrative of the Patchwork Girl's life, and broken accents. The Patchwork Girl's reading strategies concerning the relation between the genre of hypertext and one's body. Shelley Jackson has written down a body patchwork of a female as the hypertext body, representing the female as a jigsaw totality of womanhood. The white, naked body of the modern monster, the demon kilt, is cut through with stitches, dotted lines, what Shelley Jackson names a discontinuous trace, and thus establishes the monstrous possibility of the Frankenstein text, that of the female Frankenstein. Patchwork Girl and her skin was punctured, and she acknowledges herself as being a patched freak. In the graveyard lexia, under the headstone, the Patchwork Girl is born. Here lies a head, trunk, arms, right and left, and legs, right and left, all well as diverse organs appropriately disposed, may they rest in peace. Mary's narrative voice is given through her notes on meeting her abandoned creation, her second child, the Patchwork Girl, here in hyperspace, kept alive, stitched under the needle and under the pen. Mary's words are, I quote, "I made her stitching deep into the night by candlelight until the tiny black letters blurred into stitches and I began to feel that I was sewing a great quilt." But this body is the practice of the open that bodies, and the bodyness of openness that will start a mutiny, start to write down or up itself. She states, "I forge my own links, I'm building my own monstrous chain, and this Penelopean work of embroidery is aimless and decentering, never finished and always and again interrupted." But we have already concluded that the coherent centered body is a grand fiction of Western thinking, and that the body is indeed diasporic, disseminating and unfocused. The kilt of body, text, narrative, identity or gender, searched together by needle pen or dotted lines, would dismember itself one stitch after another, and in doing so, this bodily kilt, even though stitched, is a happy female monster, and this is ectopic par excellence, to be happy, monstrous and female. So this body is the one that enjoys to hold its body apart, cherishing the enjoyment of its apartness and multiplicity. And we can agree with Virginia Woolf's ontological statement that one began to be tired of I. Frankenstein and Patchwork Girl are the sword bodies of text and hypertext made by the needle pens, always already a kilting work, an echo of the other, a divisive place in which the language resides, in a place of the stitch between life and death, in and out, center and margin. The body of cadaverous Frankenstein and the body of modern cyborg Frankenstein in female collage body keep a dead watch on the frontier of politico-ethical discourse on the human, the sexuality, gender and human monster divide. The difference between naturalized semiotics of human skin and the stitched skin of the monster is in fact situated in the monstrous visibility of the stitches that human skin hides. Stitches are never removed, they cannot be overseen. They are the core of monstrous representation of body image cut through, linking borrowed parts and annexed territories. These borrowed parts are the body parts of another body or from appropriated bodies. And remember, Patchwork Girl was born or made in the graveyard, and this is the radical practice of ectopic topography. In this graveyard lexia, Shelley Jackson states, we are reading the history of body parts, digging them up and incorporating them. Open quote, you dig up body parts and learn their histories. End quote. Body parts as parts carry the reminiscences of previous bodies of unstable identities and are not here to stay. So this migrant, ghostly, the nomadic country structure is in line with the phantom limb and with the monstrosity of Patchwork Girl in being made, not born, from annexed territories of materiality, of openness, made into a body attached, detached, ruptured, and repaired, of witness, with plus ness. We can name these plural bodies, each of them a skin body or skin bodies, that make the needle pen work visible on the edges of the narrative fragments, on the places of the searcher, I am disturbance in the flow, where the echo of the other resides. The searcher is the site of language, the symbolic skin, the place in between. The body of a book is the plurality of bodies. In the text Stitch Bitch, the Patchwork Girl, Shelley Jackson states that the body is a patchwork, though the stitches may not show. The image of the coherent, unruptured, closed body that functions like a whole is dismantled in electronic linking of corporeal and symbolic pieces of narrative. Shelley Jackson is grafting a female body as a kilted body of surfaces, disembodied assemblage without organs, only skin, only the surface, the screen, skin deep. The subject is destabilized and seen as monstrous. This patchwork subject, with unclear, misty margins within the body, can be understood as an impossible possibility of another image, another subject. The reading effort when faced with hypertext literature is always a schizoid practice, a delirious inscribing onto or into this aphoristic body with its skin inside, whose margins is also the center. The reading is an encounter of being vulnerable, opened, broken, intermingled, and literary, politically, and ethically invested into being broken and mixed, according to Serres' notion of skin text as a meta-organ. This assemblage text body is a certain line of flight that is rhizomatically dispersed on an endless number of trajectories within the net of possible flights, strollings, walkings, and travelings, in losing one's way, turnings, deflections, driftings in a nomadic border space into the feminine. The Patchwork Girl is written by stitches themselves. Hypertext is the banished body. Its compositional principle is desire, states the stitched feminine manifest Stitch Bitch. Desire of the complete, closed, uninterrupted body is the desire not to see the stitches, to form, reform, and transform the assemblage, but the stitched body reveals that the stitches are body itself or are the bodies themselves. Body is indestructible in its incoherence. The kilted side can be the place of always another cut, part, fragment, xenogeneric, diverse. The kilted side is not immobile, it is always elsewhere. As I have mentioned, patchworked, cyborg female has a huge political and ethical impact, and we can safely say that with the Cyborg Manifesto by Donna Haraway, the vulnerable, frail, banished body width as being width is called onto the political stage. One of the most insightful theoretical approaches is offered by Mark C. Charles Taylor and S. S. Saarinen in the book Imagologies. The cyberspace strolling is an event of reading of peripathetical exploration through the cyberspace, the outer state, and this practice of reading employs not understanding but interstanding. Open quote. When depth gives way to surface, understanding becomes interstanding. To comprehend is no longer to grasp what lies beneath, but to glimpse what lies between. To unread the stitches, to glimpse the betweenness of body parts. Patchwork Girl's body of stitches interstands for a rhizomic structure, and we may say together with the happy monster being a rhizomic structure, this text body demands a peripathetical reading where a reader is a multiplicity itself: Patchwork Girl, author, authors, narrator, narrators, text to broken accents, readers themselves. The loose ends of the Patchwork Girl's narrative, the different, always disseminating paths the reader can follow, enable the access choice, nomadic voyaging through the hypertext. The reader too is a kilter, a storyteller walking through the scars, wounds, missing, lost body parts, stepping on the screen with a phantom limb, stitching other's limb to its body, narrating as the body falls apart, and after falling apart, reading this hypertext demands nomadic navigations, dislocating aimlessly on the paths of always already interrupted body space.